Think about this. Eric Clapton sits in the corner of a dimly lit recording studio. He is older and quieter now, and his eyes are clouded with memories and sorrow. People outside believe the story and go about their daily lives. But something breaks inside. He finally chooses to tell the truth. Not because they want to hurt you, but because keeping lies is too heavy to bear. He talks about her name, Pattie Boyd. She was a beautiful woman who was seen as a golden muse and was the subject of songs and record covers. But the picture was actually a carefully made trick. Clapton is now telling a truth that she never wanted the world to hear. It is darker and more frightening. He kept quiet for years to protect her image. Because they feel guilty or miss the old times. But no longer. He had a woman who haunted his songs and danced on the edge of every loss. She wasn't just a muse. She was very good at masks. She didn't leave behind any poetry, either. It was cruel, overwhelming, and impossible to avoid. He's not telling a love story right now. It's time to make up. On the set of A Hard Day's Night in 1964, Pattie Boyd lived George Harrison's life. She had golden light, hair that moved, and a shy smile on her face. George thought she was made of air. For the Beatles, she was a big deal. In that fairy tale, though, the bad things were getting worse. After a while, Pattie didn't want to be the quiet wife. She liked art, chaos, and guys who lived on fire. The marriage quickly became tense. George became more spiritual and lonely as he went deeper into it. Pattie got bored while she was alone on Abbey Road and at the Maharishi camps. After that came Clapton. Clapton couldn't stop thinking about Pattie while George meditated in India. He wrote Layla as a cry for help. As a plea, he wrote Bell Bottom Blues. But what looked like love was often really something darker. Clapton got hooked on more than just drugs. He got hooked on the chase as well. He couldn't stop thinking about her, even though he knew it would cost him friends, respect, and maybe even his mind. When Pattie finally broke up with George, it wasn't just for love. There was a loud boom in the rock world. But getting married to Clapton did not save him. During their years together, things went badly. Clapton was angry, drunk, and broken. Pattie was going nowhere. She wasn't sure if she had gotten out of a cage or walked into a new one. A lot of loud fights, affairs, and long stretches of quiet that were louder than guitars happened. That's what I find interesting about playing the guitar. The blues, rhythm and blues, rock and roll. Not a single record has any soul to it. Pattie's love life didn't end with Clapton. It went off in every direction. Before and after. Her life was full of artists, singers, and chaos. Thoughts were flying around like lights in a Soho alleyway. Having sexual encounters behind closed doors with Rolling Stones frontman Ron Wood. Late nights with well-known artists. Dark relationships with shooters who were being abused and said she destroyed their lives like wildfire. She seemed to be interested in guys who had bad pasts and great masks. Men who were more story than real person. Not as much cover as Storm. The scary truth is that she reflected their chaos. She didn't just watch them get destroyed, she danced in it and sometimes even lit the match. When respect turned into competition, it often turned into rivalry. It went from lovers to rivals. Confidants were used as security. Emotional ties turned into power struggles, jealousies, and whispers of deception. Some people thought she wasn't just gathering hearts, she was also taking the area. Just as an old relationship fell apart, a new one would start, leaving behind chaos and mental wreckage. People who came close to her often came out burned, not sure if they had fallen in love or been caught in something much darker. Clapton had hidden this part of her life for years, out of respect and to show she wasn't afraid to show it. Now that he has finally told her the truth, he doesn't paint her as a woman in love, instead, he shows her as someone who used her love as a tool. Not always on purpose, but always in a dangerous way. She had the beauty of a muse and the power of a storm. Many of the people who loved her wondered the same haunting thing: was she ever really mine, or was I just the next line in her unfinished song? By the middle of the 1918s, Pattie was no longer seen as a muse. She was no longer just the face in love songs, people whispered about her and were careful around her. Friends talked behind closed doors about manipulating people's emotions, fancy dinner parties that turned into fights and tears. The woman who was honored on vinyl was dangerous when she was alone. Charm and chaos that change all the time. At times, her laughter lit up a room, and artists were moved to new heights by her presence. On the other hand, there were times when she felt cold and the quiet was sharp. getting close to people deeply. In his later years, Clapton started to hint that her presence made everyone around her feel bad emotionally. In the same sentence, she could be both beautiful and mean. Some people said she treated love like money, only giving it to people when it helped her or put her in the spotlight. Some people thought she never really understood the emotional trash she left behind as she went from one guy, one moment, and one identity to the next. She wasn't just the inspiration, she was also the mirror that showed the men who loved her their fears and doubts. She showed their worst feelings by doing that. Every rock song has a story behind it, and every story has a scar. Pattie Boyd was both good and bad, a dream come true and a nightmare come true. There were many reasons why she was remembered by many people besides her beauty. Pattie had problems with more than just boyfriends. When no one was around, her private life was full of emotional minefields. Her family life was tense. She had strange relationships with her siblings, stayed away from some cousins her whole life, and fought bitterly with them over money, memoirs, and who had control over their shared story. The relationship with her younger sister Jenny was the most unstable. Jenny's success as a model led to years of quiet competition and cold comparison. At dinner tables, they insulted each other behind each other's backs, in interviews, and during picture shoots, they wouldn't even look each other in the eye. There were grudges that were kept secret for decades. Friends said that the air between them was clear as glass but dangerous. For years, the sisters moved apart. They would sometimes meet up with champagne smiles at public events, but then they would go their separate ways in their cars, even during times that were supposed to be peaceful, like family vacations, weddings, and charity events. When people were being weird or cold, Pattie was often in the middle of it. Her presence was both attracting and repelling. She was treated like queen by some. Others didn't even look at them. Reconciliation was not only hard, but almost impossible because of money, jealousy, family ties, and different stories of the same traumatic event. She had open fights with other women in the rock circle. The smart wife of Ringo Starkey was Maureen Starkey, and later, Olivia Harrison was George's steady and protective second wife. There were events that were so tense that they were left out of official accounts. There were screaming fights in the backstage hallways, and seats were placed on purpose to keep the Beatles family apart at family events. And at least one event where Pattie's early exit was welcomed with open arms. There were also long, secret fights over who they were and how much they were worth. Pattie often felt like she wasn't seen by anyone but men, even though she was the inspiration for rock stars. She told her close friends that she was afraid people would remember her not for who she was but for what she did. That pressure went inward, showing up as spirals of depression, weeks of being alone, and long periods of not being seen in public. After years of going back and forth between highs and lows, she would be dressed in fashion on the red carpet one day and lying in bed with the curtains drawn the next. People who knew her best say she was always trying to get a piece that was just out of reach. She was loved by everyone, but she was always at odds with herself. Her life wasn't a fairy tale behind the magazine covers and the nostalgic looks back. It was a war. Now, after many years, Eric Clapton finally speaks out, but not in an interview or a book. Instead, he does it in a voice that shakes with the weight of everything that has been kept silent. This isn't just ending things, it's a fight. He's not just remembering, he's also telling. Because there was a scream hidden beneath the rhythm of every love song. Behind every beautiful song's lyrics was a man falling apart and a woman who watched it happen. Clapton is now showing more than just sadness. His personality slowly changed while he was with someone he loved, feared, and couldn't get away from. He still doesn't hate Pattie, but he doesn't protect her either. Her charm and beauty were famous, but there were secrets hidden behind the glitz and glam. Controlling someone's feelings while they act like they love them, patterns of cold withdrawal followed by bursts of warmth. Not only did being around her make him feel good, it was also addicting, and it almost killed him. It was lonely for Clapton even though they were lying next to each other. He remembers the empty mornings and the stress that no one else saw. With just a look or a word, she could draw him in or push him away. It was more than love, it was power. He didn't understand until it was too late because he was caught up in her story. He talks about the nights he paced the hotel floors and watched her disappear behind closed doors without a word. He wondered who she would become next. He started writing not to remember her, but to get through her. Behind every sweet line was a night of not being able to sleep. Behind every picture of them smiling was a storm that had just ended or was about to start. The muse that once gave him fire had left him cold and broken over time. The fact that Clapton talks so clearly shocks fans, but so does the fact that the legend they once looked up to as a fairy tale figure is now shown to be much more real and dangerous. Yes, it was a force that inspired people, but it also caused manipulation, chaos, and mental breakdown. People still talk about Patty